All right, welcome everyone. We are going to be discussing job offer and salary negotiation today. I'm Joseph Jutan. I'm a career advisor with the FIU Career and Talent Development Office at the Engineering Center. All right, so some learning objectives for today. We're going to talk about like some of these things to define what negotiation is, valuing yourself, what's your worth, how negotiation tactics, the different strategies that you can use. Just like how you would give an elevator pitch, there's also something called a salary pitch. We'll talk about that. And how do you evaluate or juggle several, maybe 2, 3, or several different offers to get the best one that you could possibly get. So a couple of things to kind of be aware of. Just real quick, we're going to talk about NACE Career Readiness Competencies again today. NACE is National Association of Colleges and Employers, basically an organization that was formed to identify the top soft or transferable skills that employers look for internships and for entry-level jobs. And because today is job offer salary negotiation, the two main, or I would say the main competency from this workshop that you should get is number one, oral written communication skills and career management. So I'll spare you guys the number one skill that employers look for on a whole in general from students or students in their undergrad or even graduate programs is critical thinking, problem solving, and professionalism, work ethic, teamwork, or communication, infotech, leadership, career management, and global intercultural fluency. So we will go through these again very quickly. Critical thinking, problem solving, so being able to, if you are going into industry or private sector, at the end of the day, it's all about solving problems, outcomes, numbers, dollars and cents, shareholders. So ultimately, the takeaway message is results. So if you could, position yourself as someone who is a critical thinker or someone who's going to solve those problems and in the end run help that company make more money or produce outcomes or results, that's always going to help you stand out. Or written communication skills. I would say for today, in terms of job offer salary negotiation, most of it takes place over email, just so that there is a paper trail. Some employers do have that conversation orally, but for the most part, 95% of that is going to be via email. So it's specifically written communication skills. So getting the message across accurately, free of typos, misspellings, grammatical errors, those types of things. Teamwork, collaboration skills. So being able to work with others, not just by yourself, super important and necessary for an engineering role. Digital technology. So using the software the software required to get the job done. So if that's something like AutoCAD, MathCAD, Microsoft Office, Word, software in general, that's what that competency is identifying. Leadership, so not only being able to be someone who takes direction and work in teams, but being able to step up to the plate and be a leader when you need to or when it's required. Professionalism, work ethic, working, with others. Well, actually, I'll get to that part. But this one means, whatever you value as good work ethic and professionalism and whatever that employer defines as good professionalism and work ethic. So the two should align. It shouldn't be contrasting ideas. Career management. This one, again, is specifically for job offer salary negotiation. So identifying your skills, experiences, whatever you bring to the table as to why you should get that higher salary, why you should get, increased benefits, why you should get a bigger sign-on bonus, all of those things. And then number 8, global intercultural fluency, being able to work with others from different, backgrounds, ethnicities, cultures, all of those different factors. All right, so here is an infographic, and this is a very interesting piece, as you can kind of see. A couple of things on the screen. The one on the left, and in like I guess lime green or kind of mint green, how common is salary negotiation for new grads? So 62% of new grads do not negotiate versus 38% who do, which is a huge amount. It's way past 50%. And most of the feedback or the knowledge I have as to why students do not negotiate their first entry-level full-time job is because they're just so happy to get a job offer, right? So sometimes students have the impression that if I make noise or if I say, hey, can I get more money and better benefits, company car, whatever that looks like, they feel like the employer is going to retract the offer, which is not true. And I'll get to that part. The one in the middle with the two faces, 34% of women negotiate versus 44% of men who do. So you kind of see some gender disparities there. The one below, 90% of employers have never retracted an offer because an entry-level candidate tried to negotiate. I've never seen it in my professional experience, especially with bigger companies. So, for example, companies like, like Lockheed, Boeing, Microsoft, Apple, Tesla, those big industry companies who have very established, HR departments and things in place. They're never gonna, if you are chosen as a top candidate, they're not gonna retract the offer, right? Because you're the top candidate. It doesn't work that way. But just kind of frame a couple of things. Don't feel like, we're gonna get more in depth in a minute, but you should always negotiate with certain best practices in mind. Even if you didn't use best practices and you did try to negotiate in a way that wasn't acceptable, they're not gonna retract it. They're just at the most gonna tell you, no, we can't increase this or we can't do that. But we'll get more in depth in a minute. 74% of employers have room to increase in the first 5 to 10% during negotiations in terms of the salary, especially if you are going into the private sector. As I mentioned just now, it's again all about numbers, outcomes, profits. So if, for example, never think of it as personal either, it's always business decisions. Why would they offer someone more from the get-go unless they're being strategic in a certain way where they could get great talent for less? So let's say in your interview, you told them you'd be comfortable with 50,000 and the general average price or average salary for that position is 60. You're probably going to see 50 in your offer letter. So they wouldn't up it to 60 because you said you'd be comfortable with 50. So just to kind of frame those a bit differently. But usually when you go into the salary negotiation process or the job offer process, they have that much 5 to 10% working room. It's a bit different for local, state, municipal, federal, where budgets are very strict. But at least for the private sector, you have way more working room in terms of getting a bit more if you negotiate. 80% of students and grads who negotiate are at least partially successful. Don't get too kind of like lasered in on the fact that it needs to be the salary. People feel like that's the only thing that this whole process is about, is the higher salary amount. And they also tend to forget that usually employers have a lot more working room to negotiate the benefits than they do for the actual dollar amount. So whether it's things like tuition reimbursement for a graduate program, a bigger sign-on bonus, whether they'll pay for all of your expenses for you to move from Miami to New York, if it's that they'll pay your rent for 6 months while you're in that new position or in that new city, getting your feet, comfortable. There's a ton of different ways that they could work. And it's, in my opinion, the benefits is where it's like I forget the saying. It's like overlooked. So definitely think about that when you are, juggling different offers. And then that last one on the bottom right, success rates for non-salary benefits. Kind of mentioned a couple of those things already. Schedule, if you come in like Monday through Thursday, you get Friday off, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, pay time off. Like you accrue vacation days at a much bigger, higher amount. Bigger bonus, better stock options. So a couple of things there to kind of get, help you guys think of it in a more expanded way. So what exactly is negotiation? So as you can see from a couple of these bullet points, it's basically bargaining and, interaction of influences. So it's always a professional conversation. Don't ever bring any, personal feelings into it. Like, oh, they said it this way, like that hurt my feelings, whatever. No, it's never anything personal like that. Even if you try to negotiate and you don't get exactly what you want, see if you could kind of come back in a different way to say, okay, if we can't agree on it this way, how about this? It's either going to be a yes, no, or let me get back to you. So it's just a back and forth, a very professional means of communicating to kind of get you the best offer you can in the very beginning. So why negotiate? So this first bullet point, future raises may be based on your initial salary. So if you get like a position and you start off at a much lower one, obviously you have much, like in terms of when you start the position, if you start to that, let's say instead of 60, 80, then over time, however long you stayed at that position, maybe 2 years, 3 years, because you started at a higher amount, you're going to earn more in the long run versus if you started at a much lower amount. Because like if you start 60 and then you get a raise from like 60 to 65 versus if you started at 70 and you could have gotten a raise from 70 to 75 or to 76. Pension and 401k contributions are often based on your salary, always usually some kind of percentage or depending on the tax bracket you fall in. So you would want to be in a position where you get the salary or the benefits or the pension, whatever, where it starts at a higher amount. That way you're accruing more in the long run. Future employers may ask for a salary history. We'll kind of get more into this in a bit, but you don't really need to disclose your salary in let's say in an interview, or if an employer asks. Always be very strategic with it, because if you are coming from a position that paid 60 and then you're coming into this role that it's probably not that big of a jump up, but that you're asking for, let's say 80, there could be a disparity there. So keep that in mind. And then of course your mental health and your well-being and attitude. What happens sometimes is, or hopefully most of you guys know, sometimes employers will have like 50 entry-level positions, right? And they'll like recruit at FIU and they offer 50 FIU students these entry-level roles. And then you may negotiate, someone else might not negotiate. So they're all not going to start off with the exact same salary, because some people would have taken the time to negotiate either the benefits, the salary, or both. So if you didn't negotiate anything just because you were, I don't say afraid, but hesitant because you didn't want to rock the boat, and then you start in that company and then you find out that this other person who's in the exact same role as you is making 5,000 more, or they got better benefits, you're probably going to feel, a bit, I guess salty is a word you guys kind of connect with, or you're going to feel some type of way that, hey, I could have gotten more if I had taken the time to negotiate the salary or the benefits. So we're going to talk about some types of job offers. Number one, we have open-ended date. I haven't seen this as much. Usually employers do give you some timeline when you need to respond. But the open-ended date, if you do see it, it's kind of up to you about when you officially accept or tell the employer whether you're going to accept or decline the offer, or if you're going to try to negotiate. A specific date in accordance with company recruiting deadlines, that's the most common one. That one is also flexible sometimes, which I think is I'll come back to that part. But yeah, so sometimes it'll be a specific date, and they'll have some flexibility in terms of like a week or 2 weeks after, if you did decide to negotiate. But that's the most common one. Exploding offers, I don't see this one as much. I haven't seen it recently. But what happens with this is employers will have this amazing offer because they need to lock in a candidate or a qualified candidate immediately. So they don't want to wait for you to be going back and forth trying to negotiate with their company. If you have like 2 or 3 other job offers and, different timelines, sometimes it could be a very extended process. So the purpose of the exploding offer is to kind of lock you in and decline. If you have other offers, to have you hopefully decline everyone else and go with that company. Offers with incentives to sign on. Those are things, like I said, like a sign-on bonus, stock options, if they'll pay for your rent or they'll pay for the flight, they'll pay the U-Haul, moving expenses, everything. So you'll have various expenses or incentives, attached to the offer. Internship conversion to full-time offers. This one is also very, very common with engineering students. So if you do an internship in your junior year, or even when you're going into your senior year, it's just more cost effective for an employer to convert someone who's already in the role, even though it's not in that specific role, but in an internship role, to convert them to a full-time role, compared to just to recruit from scratch and then have to train that person who doesn't know anything about the role or the company. But if you've been an intern with them, you have some knowledge, or not even some, you probably have a lot of knowledge of that company and what goes into it. So again, it all boils down to dollars and cents, making things more efficient, not wasting money. So interns are a great way for employers to get new talent through the door. And then just a statistic there, that they usually convert 51. I would even say it's higher. I'm talking about pre-COVID. Not even sure what the numbers were right now in COVID. I have to double check all of those. But before all of this happened in 2020, I would even say it was probably closer to 60. A lot of engineering students do get converted. And even if you don't get converted, just having that internship and industry internship on your resume is going to put you in the top 1% of you're going to get offers from other companies. The fact that you had an industry experience, that puts you in the front running for whichever other engineering positions you might have applied for. Candidate selects when the official offer is made. I haven't seen this one before. I'm sure it's out there. But for the bigger companies, you usually don't get to decide when the offer is made. That's usually what the employer does. They do it themselves. Right. So when you go through the whole, applying for the position, the interview, first round interview, second round interview, if it even goes for a third round interview, if you're the top person, you're going to get likely an email with the job offer. Sometimes they'll keep it old school and they will call you. That's why I always recommend that when you are in any type of job, applying for any jobs, or you're interviewing, or you're expecting to hear back from an employer, just make sure you answer all those calls. Don't let it go to voicemail, or don't answer. Just make sure you're on top of that part. So it's going to be they're going to send you a very lengthy document. We had a ton of legal wording that you're probably not going to understand, but it's probably like maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 pages of very small text going in detail what this job offer is, including the salary, benefits, all that stuff. So what you want to do is when you get that email, don't accept it immediately. So don't reply back to the email saying, thank you so much, I accept the offer. You reply back and say, thank you so much for sending me the job offer. It was really exciting to learn about the company during my interview. You could say something like, the interview was such a positive experience, blah, 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 whatever that looks like for you. And then you end it with, again, thank you for sending this, ABC123. Can I have some time to kind of read through everything and get back to you in the next week, 2 weeks, or even if the employer puts in that initial email, we need your response by XYZ date. So again, it depends. And I should have said this in the very beginning of the workshop. I'm going to be using that phrase a lot. It depends, because it really does. All these different companies and the different positions that they have, the different recruitment styles, the different recruiters themselves, and of course, you guys, the students or candidates, you guys are all different. So it's always going to be slightly different for everyone. So if you are someone who is currently juggling different job offers, or you have a unique situation, definitely book me for an appointment. Everything that we're talking about today is in general, but definitely keep in mind that this is just a very, very broad overview of what the process looks like in general. All right. So once you send that email, that could be your only offer. You could have multiple offers, but the main thing is don't accept right away. All right. So in terms of this slide, so the job offer, you have three options, right? This isn't in relation to the previous slide. You're not going to accept it immediately. This is after you've sent you're thanking them for sending it. We'll get back to you in X amount of time. So you have 3 options. Once you've sent that email, you could either decide, yes, I'm going to accept this offer after you've read through that document in detail multiple times. You can decide, no, I don't actually care about this position anymore. My life circumstances have changed, or maybe I've received an offer from a different company, or maybe I'm going to gamble and refuse this offer because I'm waiting to hear back from my dream company, and the chances or the probability that I'm going to get the offer is very high. Or thirdly, you could propose a counter offer. So if you're someone who has several offers, like say, for example, you have 3 offers, you could word up that email to that employer saying, you're going to do all your research ahead of time to kind of see that all the benefits are industry standard. They're offering you the correct salary for that company, that position, and that location based on also your accomplishments and skills. And in that, we're going to get more in depth in that in a bit. But just to kind of give you guys some background info, when you propose that counter offer, you're just kind of saying, can I get this much more based on my qualifications? Or it could be a mixture. It could be based on my qualifications and the fact that I have another offer from ABC company offering the same amount or higher. So it's a branching tree. It's, again, no one's offers are going to look the same. Maybe it's the only offer you have. Maybe for a different student, that could be one of 4 offers that they have. For me, maybe it could be I only have 2 offers. So it's just very, very different. But just to kind of give you guys a surface level idea of what the offers could look like. And of course, your 3 options there. Right. And yeah, so that last bullet point there. And again, in that initial email anyways, you are going to ask for additional time, regardless if let's say it's the only offer and you really love everything in the package, the benefits, the salary, everything. Just don't accept right away. You really want to take a day or 2 to kind of read through it, because at the same time, you don't want to look too jumpy as well. But they're not going to think you're jumpy. But it's always best practice to kind of take some time, because they're going to think, okay, great, you're our top person, but there's no, like, we just sent you this email. You probably haven't read through the whole job offer carefully. So just remember that point there. So when it comes to negotiation offers, you have your goals and then you have the employer's goals. So of course, your goals are to research as much as you can. That's the main key when it comes to negotiation. So going on things like Glassdoor, LinkedIn Salary Calculator, you could go on Reddit. Pretty sure you guys know Reddit, where you could look up what companies pay for different positions, kind of make use of that. If you have a network, if you know like a student who was your, peer, I guess, at FIU, and they're now working at that company, you could reach out to kind of see, hey, does this look right? Or just kind of get as much background info as you can. Know your worth, know what you've done. If you have multiple certifications, awards, if you have publications, or like, let's say, for example, you have like an amazing GPA, or just something to help you stand out from the crowd. Those are some of the things you could use as bargaining chips as to why you should get a higher ABC 1, 2, 3. Skills, training, professional development. Of course, when you are in negotiation, in preparation for future opportunities. And then always remember, again, the total compensation package and not just the salary. And then from the employer side, there's hardly ever going to be an employer that is going to look at you trying to negotiate in a negative way, because if they do, that's going to turn you off, and you are their top choice, of course. So they're never going to kind of come at you in a very left-sided way. So it sets the tone for the future employment relationship. Of course, they want to offer you the job. Sometimes that's what that second bullet point there does: secures best and most qualified candidate. Because don't keep it a secret. Employers know, especially engineering employers, that you're probably going to have multiple offers from different companies. So don't feel like you need to keep it low key, that you're trying to hide that you have other offers from employers. You could be very upfront with it and let them know, thank you for this offer. I'm currently evaluating or weighing my different options in terms of my multiple job offers. Maximizes retention rate. So the employer it's in their best interest to work with you to secure you as a full-time employee, because it's very expensive and time-consuming to recruit in general. So it's not in the employer's best interest to let you slip away and another employer scoops you up. Ideally, they would want to kind of lock you in. So that's why they would be willing to negotiate in some way. And then that last one, build company reputation. So the company doesn't want to be known as that company who does not negotiate, unless they can't help it, like if they're a government agency, state, local, federal, whatever. But in general, being a company that has a reputation of working with their candidates is going to always help them recruit more people in the future, and obviously keep people on in that company long term. So a couple of things here in terms of worth. Entitlement does not equal promotion. When it comes to negotiation, it's never going to be something where you are asking just for asking's sake. You are asking for better benefits or an increased salary, again, based on your past experiences, skills, qualifications, certifications, accomplishments, projects, or it could also be in conjunction with your other offers that are offering more. Do you do more than that you were asked to do? So those are some of the things that you kind of use to help you negotiate. So if let's say, for example, you are negotiating with a certain company, you could use that as a talking point in the email, or if it's verbal, to say, hey, when I was in this role, or when I was in my senior design, or when I was in this internship, we kind of went above and beyond to do this or do that, and we won awards for it, or we got accolades, whatever that looks like for you. What's too much education? This bullet point specifically, you can use, like if you have like a graduate degree, or you minored in something, or you have some kind of certification that helps you stand out, you can use those as bargaining chips. They may not be as effective if it's like a bare bones entry-level position where they're just asking for the bachelor's, but it could help. It depends. You kind of have to weigh it or kind of feel it out depending on the company and the position. Make sure, of course, you document all those accomplishments ahead of time. So you shouldn't be trying to dig up all that stuff once you get the job offer. You should have these ready from the get-go. And then your goals and expectations should be realistic. So I kind of mentioned this earlier in the very beginning of the presentation. Don't make the mistake of, trying to ask for way more than the position pays, which it kind of goes back to the whole research part, or kind of, even if you're asking for, 5,000 more, plus you're asking for, to be 6 months of your rent to be paid in the new city, plus this, plus that. You just kind of have to make sure that you're not overreaching in terms of your expectations, making sure they're realistic, just like that bullet point says. So this is we're going to talk about a couple of things here. So research. So everything I kind of just mentioned just now, just kind of evaluating, what you want in terms of like the position, whether it's entry level, mid level, if it's a virtual position, hybrid, just kind of doing all that stuff. And then looking at some of these things, which I kind of mentioned. I think that's, market. Those are some of the websites, the market factors. Payscale, Glassdoor, NACE salary calculator, and LinkedIn is on the up and rise. That's usually my go-to recommendation in addition to Glassdoor and, of course, Reddit. And, of course, your network, which is super important. Factor in the cost of living, like the budget. Like when you're looking at the job offer and you're looking at how much they're paying, let's say it's in Charlotte, North Carolina, you have to like think about what is the cost of living in that city? What's my rent going to look like? What's the mortgage going to look like? What's the day-to-day expenses? Gas, how far would I have to drive? Do I have to take public transportation? Like if it's in New York, how much is going to be the metro bus, like all that stuff. So those are some of the things you want to kind of factor in when you are looking at the salary in addition to the benefits. There's some more websites there. Again, I'm going to share this PowerPoint with everyone, so you're going to have a couple of these. But there's no lack of websites, but just some more resources there to kind of give you guys everything you need. All right, so negotiations are business transactions. Kind of mentioned this again a couple of times, but it really is. Don't take it personal. Even if they reply to your email of you trying to ask for more money and you get the impression that they're being rude or you kind of read into it too much. Again, even if it does come off as rude, don't take it personal. It's nothing like that. Remember, they're not gonna retract the offer. It's either a yes, no, or let me get back to you. All right. So again, remember, do the research, know your deal breakers. If let's say you 100% need a company car, or you need at minimum $75,000 because you've done your research and the cost of living, everything, you wouldn't be able to, meet your obligations or pay your bills with anything less. If you have student loans, car payments, if you have medical bills, again, it depends, but everyone's different. So know what your hard deal breakers are, because if it comes to a point where you're at a ceiling and you've tried to negotiate and the employer is not willing to budge, like that's as good as it's going to get in terms of their offer, then that's when you're going to have to really decide, do I accept or do I just decline it and hope for something better in the future? Make sure, again, you review those job descriptions and responsibilities. If, let's say, in those responsibilities, you have done things in your past experiences that, qualify you, or even you're a standout, like you've done a lot of what they're asking for, that could be a negotiation tactic. And of course, like practice. Like it's really hard to practice salary negotiation until you actually have to do it. But when you do start getting job offers, that's going to be practice. Because the thing is, once you start juggling or negotiating with your first entry-level job, that's not going to be the end of it, because you're going to start moving up. You're either going to get promoted or you're going to apply for different roles in 2-3 years, and you're going to get job offers just like how you did for the first position. So you'll have a substantial, or hopefully a substantial, amount of experience to pull on from each subsequent job that you've had in the past. Yeah, remember the benefits and just be confident. When it comes to that wording of the email or the communication in general with the employer, you never want to come off as sounding like you're not sure, you haven't done the research really, like I said, like you give them a ridiculous figure, like, no, that doesn't, this $60,000 position, this is a 60 grand position. We don't have a budget for 75. All right, so just be prepared and be confident with that communication. Kind of getting ahead of myself, mention a couple of these things here too. So financial necessities, that's what you have, what you need at the bare minimum. Personal priorities, like if you are someone who needs to stay close to family, you can't move to Atlanta, you have to stay, you could only go as far as Orlando. Those are, if the company has positions in different locations, that's something you can factor in. Hey, yeah, I know this offer is for the Atlanta office, but you can negotiate to see if they could give you the Orlando office instead. Companies' benefits, potential growth. So is it a position? We talked about benefits a couple of times now, but potential growth meaning, how soon after I start this position will I be able to move up? Like what's like the ceiling? Because I'm assuming most people want to move up in some way on average every 2 to 3 years. So if this company, let's say, I'll give you guys 2 examples. This company is offering me 80,000, but the ceiling is like the next position up and that's it, right? Versus a company that is offering you 60, but the upward mobility or the upward chance to progress is much higher. So in maybe a year or 2 years, you'll be making 85, 90. You have to consider that. Do I want to start this position with the ceiling that's lower at 80, or am I willing to take a lower salary and and just hold out for a promotion or upward growth in that position in a year or two. So a couple of things there. Depends. So factors that employers think about, of course, their short-term goal is to lock you in and that you're satisfied, sets the tone for future employment relationships. So if you have a negotiation or a conversation with that employer back and forth, and you get what you want, they were able to alter the job offer, kind of slightly tweak things. If you didn't get exactly what you want, but they were able to give you something else, that sets a good relationship with that employer at the beginning. So you're not going to be bitter, your first day. Secure best and most qualified candidate. Again, they want to negotiate with you because you are the top candidate anyways, and they wouldn't want to lose you to a different company or for you to just flat out decline the job offer, because at that point, they're either going to have to go to their number 2 person or their number 3 person. And by the time they get to their number 2 or 3, those people probably would have already accepted offers with other companies if they have. And then if that's the case, worst case scenario, they have to start from scratch and recruit all over again. So that's what they're trying to do in terms of the short-term goals. Long-term goals, the process of negotiation and giving the job candidate the best offer that they can, working with the company's budget, of course, maximizes retention rate. Because if you're happy, the chances or the probability you're going to stay there longer is going to be higher compared to, like, let's say you're not happy and you only stay 6 months versus you staying there 2 years if you kind of got what you wanted from the beginning. Build company's reputation, and do you fit within their budget? And the budget is super important, again, mostly for public positions. The private sector has more work room for budgets. Right, so I'm not going to go through all of these because this is a very, very long list, but these are some of the things that you can think about when you are trying to negotiate as to why you should take this position versus not, what you value more, what that position entails. So these are kind of just like jog words or value words that are basically value oriented to help you decide which position you would take over another, which one you would value more. Right, so just so you guys can kind of see this at a glance, I would say for engineering students, the most important ones in this list are, of course, salary isn't here, but yeah, it's the last one. Salary is number 1, benefits is number 2, challenge is number 3, and number 4, I would say location. All right, so those are a very good list there. And then stability, that one didn't come up. All right. So some considerations you can think of when it comes to negotiation, vacation time. If you accrue vacation or sick days at a much higher amount, if that company extends like health insurance or whatever for, loved ones, children, or, whatever that looks like for you, that's a good one. Health saving contributions, stock options is always, I've never not seen it in the private sector. You can negotiate those. Scheduling, if you want to come in Monday, Tuesday, Friday, if you come in Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, whatever that looks like. If you rather work evenings versus like typical 9 to 5. Right now, telecommuting or virtual is a lot of what everyone is doing right now. Might change for the future once the vaccine comes out, but just to kind of give you guys an idea. Gym memberships, daycare is very expensive. I don't have kids, so I didn't know. But daycare is a huge business, and they are very expensive. It's a very expensive, commodity for working people. Tuition reimbursement for those of you who want to go back to school for a graduate degree, that's a big one. I've seen a lot of engineering students who kind of go this route, because why? You can think of it from this. If my ultimate goal is to work in industry, it might make more sense for me to, after my undergrad, go and work for a company for 2 years and then start my master's program for free, versus finishing my undergrad and then going straight to grad school, where I might need to take on a graduate assistantship, apply for a scholarship, pay for it out of pocket. So you're just putting that expense back on the employer. The times I've seen students go from undergrad straight to grad school, if they want to pursue a career in academics, or they want to be a professor or do research, I've seen it more so that way. But a very good way for you guys to get a more advanced degree on the employer's wallet. Relocation allowance, where they pay for your stuff, could be a combination of the flight, the gas, the moving, like if you have to move stuff in a truck, all that stuff. Starting date, of course, negotiating when you would start the position. So if you decide that this is a company I want to work for, and let's say you graduate next May, but you really can't start that position until August 1st, because let's say you have someone who's sick and you have to look after them and you're not going to get any help until August, that's something that you can negotiate. You can negotiate your business title, what your position, your entry-level position is, memberships for, engineering associations, parking if you have to park at the, if that company need, like FIU staff has to pay for parking. That's something that you, and students of course, but let's say that company you have to pay for parking, you could negotiate to say if they could waive it for a year, 6 months, if it could be a reduced amount, stuff like that. Insurance, car insurance, health insurance, anything under that whole blanket. Cell phone, pension retirement is really good if you could negotiate, on a better match on your 401k. If you just whatever that looks like. Always remember that's something that an employer is probably going to be more willing to negotiate. And it's most people, younger people, don't think about the pension and the retirement till later. But that's something you could start off very strong with employers. Vacation time, hours of work, yeah. So like flexibility with the schedule, bonuses, profit sharing, training, yeah. So just a ton of different things there. Hopefully some of this helps and not have you guys just think about the salary. All right, so this is what a sample offer letter looks like. Well, your reply to to try and negotiate. So I won't read through this whole thing, but you kind of see in that second paragraph where it says, I would like to address the base salary of 58 in your offer based on my research of similar positions in location Houston. So a salary starting in the mid 60s is more consistent. And they're giving even more background info to say, based on my 2 years of experience doing this, plus my master's level of education in this, and my 4 years of experience as a coordinator, they're not just asking, they're given the facts, right? The position normally pays this much in Houston, so that could even just be the only tactic they use, but they're using a combination. So they're saying I should be getting this much more because this is what the standard is in Houston, and then I also have experience doing this, or ABC 1, 2, 3. So they're not just asking for asking's sake. They're asking and giving reasons why. And then that last paragraph, just kind of wrapping it up very nicely, hoping to accept, hoping you will work with me, looking forward to hearing from you. So this is essentially what a bare bones job offer could look like, or a negotiation email. Again, it always depends. It looks different for every person, but this is a very standard, very general standard example. This is just like how when you are interviewing, so if some of you have been in my interviewing skills workshop, using an Excel sheet or some kind of grid to track different offers is going to be very helpful. Because as I mentioned, those job offer letters are very long and very detailed and can be very confusing, even if you have one, much less 2, 3, or 4. So if you do a sheet like this to kind of like put check marks to kind of see which company's offering what do I want to negotiate? Do I prefer this company? So you're just being very strategic and making it very easy for you to kind of see what is what for each company. There's like a visual aid, I would say. And then you have all of the factors there on the left. Okay, so the counter offer rejection. So sometimes what happens when you try to negotiate, like let's say you sent this email, they might get back to you and say that, it's sorry, we're not able to negotiate, either because they don't have the budget for it. This is just what the position pays. If it's something where like it's a contract position or it's funded by a stipend or something, they may not have any working room to negotiate. Likewise, if you ask for this a better benefit position, whatever, money, increased salary, and you give no justification as to why you should get a higher amount, whether it's because you're qualified, if based on your research you saw that those positions in that city normally paid this, then you're probably going to get a counter offer, because they're not just going to give it to you, give you better benefits, better salary just because you asked. Always as to a reason why. And then that third one, don't negotiate if you have no intention of accepting the offer. So I haven't seen it as much. Please don't make this mistake where you already know for sure you're going to accept with ABC company, but you're going to negotiate with XYZ just to see if they're going to give you more money, right? That's just a waste of your time and a waste of their time. So yeah, if it's something where you're not sure, you're pretty sure you want to work for ABC company, but let me see what it would happen if I negotiate with XYZ. Maybe I would consider accepting their offer if they kind of match the benefit or the salary, if they gave me more, then of course yes. But if you're dead set on ABC regardless, I would say no. Don't try and negotiate with the other company. Right. So if you get an email kind of saying trying to counter offer, if it's over the phone, whatever the medium looks like, you could kind of, like it says here, bridge a gap. And then kind of like if it's like you get denied for the salary, you could kind of go on to your number 2 where you try and negotiate for the benefits. If your initial negotiation was for the benefits and you get denied or you didn't get exactly what you want, you could kind of have a counter offer to say, okay, I'm willing to keep the benefits as they are, but are you willing to negotiate for a higher salary? So the thing is, even if you are negotiating for the salary and it's industry standard, the bring to the position. Always be willing to compromise. If you want 65, ideal salary is, and that's when you would give the range, or the range, of course, never a specific figure. And then if it's within their budget or they're able to work with it, then they'll draw up an official offer letter and send it to you. But you could come across this. I haven't seen it as much. Usually they are the first one who makes the offer in terms of the benefit and the salary. If you get asked this question, also an interview question. Again, it depends. You can be truthful. You can give I would say don't give an exact figure for how much you made in your last job. You could give a ballpark figure. You could say on average, I made between this amount and that amount. So yeah, I won't read through all of these quotes here, but again, you'll have this PowerPoint, but just to kind of give you an idea of what this looks like. The main takeaway is giving an exact figure. An average is good and a range. And from the employer's perspective, the reason why they might ask this question is to kind of get a good idea to see what they could offer you based on your qualifications, experience, etc., in alignment with what you made in the previous role. And if that role was engineering or if it was a different industry. So some do's of negotiation. I would say nowadays everything is virtual regardless of COVID or not. Some companies still do it in person. I've never seen it. It's always over email or over the phone. Always, because there's a paper trail that way versus hearsay, which would be in person. Always be honest. I've had students who have tried to negotiate. A perfect example, I had a student who had job offers from Microsoft, Lockheed, and Boeing. And they wanted Boeing, and they tried to negotiate with them to say, hey, I have a position or an offer from Lockheed for 5,000 more. Are you willing to match them? And the employer said, we're willing to work with you. Can you please send us that job offer letter from Lockheed? So you don't want to be caught in a lie. If you didn't have that offer, it's going to be very obvious if you're not willing to share. You're trying to kind of word up an email to say the reason why you can't share the offer. So just be very, very honest. Don't call bluffs or anything. Just be very upfront with everything in this whole process. Could be something that, I want to say they're going to retract the offer if they caught you in a lie. They may. You don't want to be in that position regardless. Make sure you do all that research ahead of time, know your worth, your values, what you need, like what your bare minimum is. If it's in person, or be aware of like body language. If it's over Zoom, your facial expressions, tone of voice, all that stuff, all those nonverbals. Active listening, meaning listening to understand what they're saying versus when their speak, like if it's verbal versus, written or email, but not being read, like in the process of getting ready to respond. So you're not listening to what they're saying. You're getting ready to answer or respond to what they're currently saying. So you're not actively listening. Hopefully that made some sense there. But putting yourself in that person's shoes, showing confidence. Don't be, again, like back and forth, unsure, and just keep it very, very professional. And remember, it's never anything personal. So some don'ts: don't do all the talking, just kind of a mutual back and forth. If it's verbal, if it's email, I don't think you're going to run into that issue. Don't be, when it says apologetic about your credentials, meaning you should be very, I guess, souped up or very excited, like you are not boasting. I can't think of the word, but you shouldn't be, downplaying your accomplishments, your credentials, your degree, your certifications, because those are the things that's going to help you stand out, and some of the variables that they decide or use to give you a better offer. Don't be arrogant. So kind of striking that balance between being confident and professional at the same time. Don't be defensive, argumentative. Remember, it's a professional conversation. It's never anything personal. Again, not being decisive, the body language. Don't bring personal life into negotiation, meaning I need it to be making at least 85,000 because I have to pay. I have a car. I have to pay for a car note, or my mortgage is this much. I have to. Those aren't valid reasons as to why you should negotiate. You should always negotiate based on your credentials and nothing else. Your qualifications and your credentials and your skills and experiences. And of course, don't lie. If you can't send them the offer, or they do reference checks, or you told them you're making at your current job between 90 to 100,000, and they do reference checks, and your supervisor says no, Jane is making 60,000 in this role, right? So just be careful with that part. And then wait, for this last bullet point, if you work for a public institution where salaries need to be public, they could look up that very easily on different state websites. So just remember, just be very truthful. So some final thoughts. Negotiation is not a requirement. You don't have to negotiate. I did say it would be good because you kind of come out ahead if you can, and kind of going back to that first slide with the statistics. But if you look at that job offer, that initial job offer, and it has everything you want, you don't want to put yourself through a whole negotiation process. Don't feel pressured. You could just accept it if it's exactly what you want. But just remember, if you keep it in mind that if you did negotiate, or if the company allows for that, you could essentially be making more if you want to. But that's not important to everyone. So just remember your value. Again, if you got the offer, you are the top candidate. So you're in a very strategic place. You have the power compared to when you are interviewing. The power is more on the employer side because they're the one who kind of makes the decision of whether they're going to offer it to you or not. But when you're someone who has multiple job offers, or even just one job offer, the employer puts that, I guess, power back on you again, because then you're going to decide whether you're going to accept the position or not. Because then if you accept, great, the employer doesn't have to do anything else. Case closed, this position is filled. Versus if you say no, they're going to have to go back to the drawing board to recruit from scratch, reach out to number 2, number 3, number 4. So that's kind of, hopefully you guys see that perspective there. So don't make this mistake of adding more stuff down the line. Like if you and the employer reach an agreement, and the next step is for you to officially accept, and then 2 days later, like, you know what, can I actually negotiate for this instead, or can I add this onto the offer? Never a good look. Shows you as kind of indecisive, and it's just not a very good look for you. So, kind of be very upfront in the very beginning with exactly what you want. You're going to be in a better position that way. You could use your current, like, let's say you're currently working for ABC company. You could kind of job search, whatever, and you get these offers. If you decide that you want to stay with your current company, if they're willing to give you a higher salary or benefits, you could reach out. You could kind of show, if they ask for it, if you tell them, hey, I currently have a job offer from ABC company for 100,000. Let's say you're currently making 85,000. I'm willing to stay on with you if you can negotiate with me or work with me to kind of meet that salary. If it's yes, great. You could turn down the company that offer you the position. You stay on with your current company in a better position, a higher salary amount, better benefits. And then if your company says, I'm sorry, we're not able to increase your salary or change these benefits or whatever, then you could just say, goodbye, and you accept with the new company and start with them. So you have to decide what that looks like for you. And then, yeah, so this fifth one. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, sorry. I kind of cut over me for a minute. Yeah. So this fifth one here, if you received another job offer, you could let that employer know that you're considering other offers. Again, it doesn't have to be secret. They all know that people have multiple job offers, especially for entry-level positions. So it doesn't have to be a secret by any means. So those are just a couple of final thoughts there. So to walk away or not to walk away, that's something you're going to have to decide. If you decide to walk away, don't burn your bridges. Like in that example I gave with the company, if you're currently working there and they're not able to meet the salary or the benefits, don't be rude or anything. Just kind of be very, very professional with everything. And if you decide to go on with the new company, because you never know, it's a very small industry and you never want to sever connections if you don't have to. And of course, don't accept right away. You could wait for, again, like we mentioned, like let's say, for example, you are 100% not wanting to negotiate everything in that job offer letter is exactly what you want. Just make sure you wait 1 or 2 days, just so you're very informed and aware of what you are signing, because that's what a job offer is. Essentially a contract. We are going to pay you and give you this in, what's the word, like you're going to give us this in exchange for this. So it's a contract, basically. And then, of course, professional follow-up. So a couple of keys for success. I mentioned a lot of this already. I won't go into depth again, but the research, show excitement. Don't be monotone or boring. Even if you have that personality, you really want to kind of play that part. Because sometimes, people are social beings, even if it is a business process or a professional transaction, which is negotiation. But definitely show excitement, because you don't want to give off the impression that you really don't care whether they offer it to you or if not, whatever. So just kind of keep that in mind. Have backup plans, understand the risks. So just a couple of key points here. I think we're at 158. This was from our past career fair. Ignore this. We have our new spring career fair coming up in February. Details are in Handshake. Same thing for our internship. These are drop-in hours for the fall semester. Again, it's going to be different for spring semester. We're going to have all that ready in the next maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Great. So I know we have like 3 people here, but I'm having an appointment in a couple of minutes. But can I answer any questions in terms of the whole negotiation process, job offer, salary, benefits, tactics, values, research, anything?
Yeah, I actually have one question. I know it's probably a minor difference, but what's the difference between profit sharing and stock options?
So I'll be honest, I'm not 100% sure about like the actual definitions of, you said stock options and profit sharing, but definitely I can get back to you with some of that stuff. But it would be, if that's something that employer does do, it would be detailed in the of course in the offer letter. But then of course you could just do your own personal research on YouTube, Reddit, wherever, so you know exactly how each one works and which one would be the best one for you. And then if it was something, and then if it was something that you like didn't want to negotiate, once you've been informed on what those two different things mean or what that looks like for that company, then you're going to be in a prepared position to negotiate both or either.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Let me check the chat. Okay. All right, awesome. Well, I think that was the last one of our series for IEEE EMBS. Hopefully we have some more requests in the spring semester. I think the series that we've done for you guys has been like what most of our workshops look like regardless. So if you have new members in the spring, or if you guys need any refreshers in terms of resume, interviewing, even this workshop again, just let me know.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll be lining up some more workshops for the spring for sure. And especially for the internship fairs and career fairs, some preparations for that. So look forward to doing that.
Awesome. Okay. All right. It's Thursday. So have a great weekend, guys. And if anything, I'm going to send the workshop. I think it's also recorded, and then I'll send my email. My email's in the PowerPoint. If not, I'll send it to Alejandro. If anyone has any questions, you could reach out to me to my FIU email.
All right. Thank you everyone for coming. Take care.
All right. Bye.